in the marble lobby of Stirling Tower. Adelaide Constance stood like a queen surveying her kingdom. Her blonde hair fell in waves past her shoulders, and her red dress cut a sharp silhouette against the steel and glass. She had just fired Archie Clinton, a janitor who dared to warn her about an unsafe elevator. But minutes later, when the explosion tore through the 42nd floor and Adelaide lay dying in a smoke-filled cabin, it was Archie's lips pressed against hers, breathing life back into her lungs. That became the only thing standing between her and death. Adelaide Constance was 34 years old and already commanding an empire. She wore power like armor, her tailored red V-neck dress, a declaration of authority in a world that still questioned whether women belonged in corner offices. Her eyes were the color of winter frost, and they rarely softened. She had learned early that kindness was mistaken for weakness. That warmth invited betrayal. The Constance family had built their fortune on steel spines and calculated decisions, and Adelaide had internalized every lesson. Her father had died believing she was too soft. She spent the next decade proving him wrong. Stirling Tower hummed with the controlled chaos of a billion-dollar operation, and Adelaide controlled it all. But lately, the machinery was showing cracks. A crucial international contract hung in the balance. The board questioned her every move, and competitors circled like sharks, sensing blood in the water. She had stopped sleeping more than 4 hours a night. Coffee replaced meals. Her assistant, Farah Louisa, watched her with worried eyes but said nothing, knowing Adelaide would only snap at concern that felt like criticism. Archie Clinton mopped floors on the 38th floor and tried not to think about the life he used to have. At 36, he should have been leading rescue operations, coordinating emergency responses, using the skills the military had drilled into him for 12 years. Instead, he pushed a cleaning cart and scrubbed toilets. His hands, once steady on repelling lines and trauma kits, now gripped a mop handle, but he did not complain. His daughter Bridget was 7 years old, with blonde hair that caught the light like spun gold and blue eyes that saw the best in everyone. She was the reason he traded adrenaline for stability, combat boots for janitorial coveralls. His wife Sarah had died 3 years ago, a drunk driver, a rainy night, a phone call that shattered his world into before and after. Bridget had been 4, barely able to understand why Mommy was not coming home. Archie had requested discharge, moved to the city, and took the first job that offered steady hours and proximity to Bridget's school. Being a janitor meant no deployments, no midnight calls, no risk of leaving his daughter orphaned. It meant he could pick her up every day at 3:15, help with homework, tuck her in every single night. That was worth more than any title. Bridget Clinton was small for 7, but fearless in ways that terrified and amazed him. She collected broken electronics from neighbors and fixed them at their kitchen table, her tiny fingers nimble with wire and circuit boards. She asked questions about everything, read books meant for kids twice her age, and had decided last month she wanted to be an engineer. Archie would work 1,000 janitorial jobs to make that dream possible. Farah Louisa had been Adelaide's assistant for 6 years and had watched her boss transform from driven to obsessed. She scheduled meetings Adelaide forgot to eat during, fielded calls Adelaide was too exhausted to take, and wondered when the breaking point would come. Farah believed Adelaide was brilliant, visionary even, but she also believed the woman was running herself into the ground. The company was thriving. Adelaide was withering. The confrontation happened on a Tuesday afternoon, in front of 24 employees who would replay the moment in whispered conversations for weeks. Archie had been cleaning the executive floor when he noticed the control panel for Elevator 3 displaying error codes. He had worked around machinery his whole life, first in his father's repair shop, then in military transport operations. He recognized the pattern immediately: hydraulic pressure irregularities, possible cable tension failure, the kind of malfunction that could turn a routine elevator ride into a death trap. He radioed the maintenance department. They told him it was probably a sensor glitch and they would check it next week. Next week. Archie looked at the elevator doors, imagined those cables snapping, Imagine someone plummeting 40 floors. He could not wait next week. So when Adelaide Constance emerged from a brutal board meeting, her heels clicking like gunfire across the marble, heading straight for elevator 3, Archie stepped in front of her. "Ma'am, I need you to use a different elevator. This one is showing mechanical failures." Adelaide stopped. She looked at him like he was a stain on her expensive carpet. "Excuse me, the elevator is unsafe. I reported it to maintenance, but until they inspect it, no one should—" "You're a janitor." Her voice was ice. "I don't take orders from janitors." "I'm not giving orders. I'm giving you information that could save your life." The lobby had gone quiet. Adelaide felt the eyes on her, felt the weight of appearing weak, of appearing uncertain, of appearing like she needed a janitor to tell her how to navigate her own building. The board meeting had been a bloodbath. They questioned her judgment, her strategy, her competence. And now this man, this nobody in a maintenance uniform, was stopping her in front of everyone. "Step aside," she said coldly, "or step into my office to collect your final paycheck." Archie did not move. "Ma'am, please." "You're fired." The words came out sharp and final. "Security will escort you out." Archie looked at her for a long moment. He saw the exhaustion she was trying to hide, the fear wrapped in fury, the loneliness of someone who had forgotten how to let anyone close. He saw someone desperately trying to prove she did not need help. He nodded slowly, stepped aside, and walked toward the service elevator. Adelaide watched him go, felt a flicker of something that might have been regret, then crushed it. She had made her decision. She pressed the call button for elevator 3. Archie was in the stairwell, carrying his toolbox and his shame, when the building shook. The explosion was not loud so much as deep, a bass rumble that traveled through steel and concrete. Alarms shrieked. Emergency lighting flickered. His radio crackled with panicked voices. "Elevator 3, 42nd floor. Fire and smoke. Someone is trapped inside." Archie did not think. He dropped his toolbox and ran. Up, against the tide of people flooding down the stairs. Past security trying to establish order. Past smoke beginning to curl through ventilation shafts. His legs burned. His lungs screamed. He had climbed mountains with a full combat load. He could climb 42 flights now. A security guard grabbed his arm. "Sir, you need to evacuate. You're not authorized." "I'm going up." "You were just fired." "I don't care." Archie shook him off. "Someone is dying up there." The guard looked at his face, saw something there that made him step back. Archie kept running. The 42nd floor was chaos. Smoke billowed from the elevator shaft, thick and black and toxic. The emergency panel showed elevator 3 stuck between floors. Cabin doors jammed. Archie could see through the small window. Adelaide Constance lay crumpled on the floor, unconscious, her red dress stark against the gray smoke. He grabbed a fire axe from the emergency cabinet. The doors were reinforced steel, designed to withstand exactly this kind of attempt. He did not care. He swung. Once, twice, 10 times. The metal dented, then cracked, then finally gave way. He dropped the axe and pulled the doors apart with his bare hands, feeling something tear in his shoulder. Adelaide was not breathing. Her lips had turned a dusky purple. Her skin was ashen, and when he pressed his fingers to her neck, her pulse was faint and irregular. Carbon monoxide poisoning, smoke inhalation. Maybe minutes left before brain damage became irreversible. Archie dragged her out of the elevator and into the stairwell, away from the smoke. He laid her flat, tilted her head back, checked her airway. Not breathing. He felt for a pulse again, barely there. He interlaced his fingers, placed them on her sternum, and began compressions. 1, 2, 3. He counted to 30, his training automatic, his focus absolute. Then he pinched her nose, tilted her chin, and breathed into her mouth. Her chest rose. He breathed again. Back to compressions. His world narrowed to the rhythm push. Push, push, breathe, breathe, push, 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 breathe, breathe. 40 seconds felt like 40 years. He kept going. Her lips were cold against his. He was breathing his air into her lungs, forcing oxygen into her blood, manually keeping her alive through sheer stubborn will. Come on, don't you dare die on me. Then she gasped, a harsh, rattling sound that was the most beautiful thing he had ever heard. She coughed violently, her body convulsing as her lungs expelled smoke and fought for clean air. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. Tears leaked from the corners, involuntary responses to trauma and oxygen deprivation. Adelaide's vision swam. She saw a face above her, felt something warm on her mouth, tasted smoke and something else. Something she could not name. Her chest hurt. Everything hurt. She tried to speak but only coughed. "Easy," a voice said. Familiar. "Don't try to talk. You're safe now." She blinked, and the world came into focus. Archie Clinton knelt beside her, his face streaked with soot, his hands still on her shoulders. The janitor, the man she had fired, the man who was looking at her like she was the most precious thing he had ever held. "You," her voice was a rasp. "You came back." "Of course I did." Then paramedics were there, and oxygen masks, and a gurney, and the world blurred into sirens and hospital lights. Adelaide woke in a private room with clean sheets and the antiseptic smell of healing. Farah Louisa sat in a chair beside the bed, laptop balanced on her knees, trying to work even though her hands were shaking. "You're awake." Farah's voice cracked with relief. "Thank God." Adelaide's throat felt like she had swallowed broken glass. "What happened?" "Elevator explosion. Carbon monoxide poisoning. You stopped breathing." Farah set the laptop aside. "Archie Clinton saved your life." Adelaide touched her lips. They were tender, slightly bruised. She had a vague memory of pressure there, of air being forced into her lungs, of someone refusing to let her die. "He gave me CPR." "Yes." "I fired him." "Yes." "Where is he?" "He left, refused any reward or publicity, said he just did what needed to be done." Farah studied her boss with an expression Adelaide had never seen before. Disappointment. "Adelaide, he saved your life, and you never even thanked him." Adelaide closed her eyes. Shame was not an emotion she permitted herself, but it flooded through her now, hot and undeniable. She had been wrong, not just about the elevator, about everything, about assuming competence correlated with titles, about treating people as obstacles instead of human beings, about building walls so high she had forgotten what connection felt like. "Find his address," she said quietly. Farah pulled out her phone. "Already have it. 3 days later." Adelaide stood in front of a worn apartment building in a neighborhood where Sterling Tower executives never ventured. She had dressed down, jeans and a sweater, though she suspected her car had already marked her as an intruder here. She climbed 3 flights of stairs and knocked on door 17. A little girl answered, blonde hair and pigtails, blue eyes wide with curiosity, wearing overalls covered in colorful patches. She held a screwdriver and what looked like the guts of a radio. "Hello," the girl said politely. "Are you lost?" Adelaide found herself smiling for the first time in days. "I'm looking for Archie Clinton. Is your dad home?" "Daddy!" The girl turned and yelled. "There's a pretty lady here." Archie appeared in the doorway, and for a moment they just looked at each other. He wore jeans and an old army t-shirt, and Adelaide noticed for the first time how kind his eyes were, how his whole face softened when he looked at his daughter. "Ms. Constance," he said carefully. "Adelaide, please." She swallowed. "Can I come in?" He hesitated, then stepped aside. The apartment was small but immaculate. Toys were organized in bins, dishes drying in a rack, framed photos of a beautiful dark-haired woman smiling from every surface. Adelaide felt like she was intruding on something sacred. Bridget watched her with open fascination. "Are you the ice queen from Daddy's work?" "Bridget." Archie's face flushed. Adelaide laughed, a real laugh that surprised her. "I suppose I am. Or I was." She knelt down to the girl's level. "I came to apologize to your father. He tried to help me, and I was very rude to him." Bridget considered this seriously. "Daddy says even when people are mean, we should still help them if they need it, because everyone is fighting something we can't see." Adelaide felt her throat tighten. She looked up at Archie. "You're raising an incredible person." "I'm trying." He guided Bridget toward her room. "Sweetheart, can you give us a few minutes?" Bridget went reluctantly, glancing back at Adelaide like she was a puzzle to solve. When they were alone, Adelaide stood. "I came to apologize, and to offer you your job back, with a significant raise." "I don't want it." The words were gentle but firm. Adelaide blinked. "I don't understand. I don't want to work for someone who values me because I saved their life. I want to work for someone who values me because I'm good at what I do." He met her eyes. "You didn't fire me because I was bad at my job. You fired me because I made you look weak in front of people whose opinions you cared about. That's not a work environment I want to return to." Adelaide absorbed the truth of that like a slap. "You're right. I was wrong. She struggled for honesty. "I was scared. The board is trying to push me out. I'm losing control of my own company. And when you stopped me, in front of everyone, all I could think about was how it looked, how weak I looked." "Accepting help isn't weakness. I know that now." She looked at the photos of his wife. "You lost someone. 3 years ago. Car accident. I'm sorry." "Thank you." He was quiet for a moment. "After Sarah died, I had to learn to accept help. From neighbors who brought meals, from teachers who gave Bridget extra attention, from strangers who held doors when I was carrying groceries and a sleeping kid. I learned that people offering help aren't trying to prove you're weak. They're trying to prove you're not alone." Adelaide felt something crack inside her, some ice she had been building for years. "I don't know how to not be alone. It's a practice. You get better at it." She smiled sadly. "I should go. I'm sorry for taking your time." As she reached the door, Bridget called out, "Will you come back? I like you." Adelaide looked at Archie. He shrugged, a small smile playing at his lips. Doors always open. 3 days later, Adelaide's world tilted again, but this time, she was ready. Corbin Dante had been patient. The elevator explosion should have killed Adelaide Constance, removing her as the obstacle to his plan. He had been sabotaging Sterling Tower systems for months, positioning himself to swoop in with a buyout offer when the company's reputation crashed. But she survived, and worse. She survived because of a janitor Corbin had personally recommended for termination months ago, a janitor who apparently had the skills to identify sabotage when he saw it. Corbin made a call. "I need eyes on Archie Clinton. Find out what he knows." The men he hired were not subtle. They followed Archie from the grocery store to the park where he took Bridget to play. They photographed the apartment, marked the exits, planned their approach. Scare him. Silence him. Make sure he understood the cost of interfering. They chose late afternoon. When Archie was walking Bridget home from school, the sun was already setting, casting long shadows between buildings. Bridget was chattering about a science project, her hand small and warm in his. Archie was listening, smiling, when he sensed movement behind them. Instinct saved them. He yanked Bridget behind him just as 3 men moved in, blocking the sidewalk ahead and behind. They wore street clothes, but Archie recognized the coordination, the way they moved as a unit, hired muscle. "We just want to talk," the lead one said. He had a scar bisecting his left eyebrow. "Then talk. You saved the wrong person. Now you need to forget what you saw in that building. Forget about faulty elevators. Forget about Adelaide Constance. Walk away." Bridget pressed against Archie's back, silent now, sensing danger. Archie kept his voice calm. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't play stupid." The man stepped closer. "You stick your nose where it doesn't belong. Bad things happen, to you, to your kid." Archie's vision went red at the edges. "You threaten my daughter. This conversation ends very differently." The man smirked. "Big words for a janitor." They moved fast. But Archie moved faster. 12 years of combat training did not disappear just because you mopped floors. He caught the first punch, twisted, used the attacker's momentum to throw him into the second. The third came at him with a knife. Archie sidestepped, grabbed the wrist, and disarmed him in 2 smooth movements. The knife clattered across concrete. Someone yelled. Archie turned to see Adelaide Constance climbing out of her car, which she had apparently parked badly in the middle of the street. She was running toward them, her face white with fear, her phone in her hand. "I called the police," she shouted. "They're coming." The men looked at each other, then ran. Archie stood there, breathing hard, his daughter clutching his legs and crying silently into his jeans. Adelaide reached them, dropped to her knees in front of Bridget. "Sweetheart, are you okay? Did they hurt you?" Bridget shook her head, then launched herself at Adelaide, sobbing. Adelaide caught her, held her, looked up at Archie with eyes full of terror and fury and something else he could not name. "You're coming with me," Adelaide said. "Both of you, right now." Adelaide's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a building with actual doormen and security cameras in every hallway. She installed Archie and Bridget in the guest suite, which was larger than their entire apartment, and immediately called her head of security to arrange protection. Bridget explored the space with wide eyes, touching the soft furniture, marveling at the view of the city glittering below. Archie watched his daughter discover wealth she could not comprehend and felt the old inadequacy creeping back. He did not belong here. They did not belong here. "Stop," Adelaide said quietly. She stood beside him, also watching Bridget. "Stop thinking you don't deserve safety. I can take care of my daughter. I know you can. You're one of the most capable people I've ever met." She turned to face him. "But that attack was because of me, because you saved me. So now I'm going to make sure you're safe. Please, let me." Over the next week, something shifted. Bridget adopted Adelaide like a long-lost friend, following her around the penthouse, asking endless questions about business and buildings and what it was like being in charge. Adelaide, who had never spent time with children, found herself charmed by this tiny engineer who saw the world as a series of fascinating problems to solve. "Why don't you have kids?" Bridget asked one evening, sprawled on Adelaide's very expensive couch, eating pizza Adelaide had ordered because she did not actually know how to cook. "I never had time," Adelaide said honestly. "That's sad. Kids are great." Adelaide laughed. "You make a compelling argument." Archie watched them from the kitchen, his heart doing complicated things in his chest. Adelaide's walls were coming down. She laughed more, smiled more, let Bridget climb into her lap during movies. She asked Archie about his military service, really listened when he talked about losing Sarah, did not flinch from his grief. And he found himself noticing things, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was thinking, how she had exactly 3 expressions when she worked determined, frustrated, and victorious, the fact that she cared deeply about her employees, even if she had forgotten how to show it. She was not the ice queen he had first met. She was lonely and scared, and trying so hard to prove herself worthy of the space she occupied. One night, after Bridget was asleep, they sat on the balcony with wine Adelaide did not usually drink and talked about everything and nothing. The lights of the city spread below them like fallen stars. "Can I ask you something?" Adelaide said quietly. "When you were giving me CPR, what were you thinking?" Archie was quiet for a long time. "I was thinking that I had already lost one person I cared about. I wasn't going to lose another. You didn't even know me. I knew enough. I knew you were exhausted and scared and trying to hold everything together alone. I knew you reminded me of soldiers I served with, the ones who thought asking for help meant admitting failure." He looked at her. "I knew you deserved to live." Adelaide felt tears prick her eyes. "I remember it. You know, the kiss. Your breath in my lungs, feeling like I was drowning and then suddenly I could breathe again." She touched her lips without thinking. "I've never felt anything like that. Connected to someone at the most fundamental level. You literally kept me alive." Archie reached over and took her hand. Her fingers were cold. He wrapped them in his warmth. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not giving up on me." "Never." Corbin Dante was running out of time and patience. Adelaide had increased security, hired investigators, and was getting dangerously close to uncovering his sabotage scheme. The international contract signing was in 3 days, if it went through. Sterling Tower's value would soar, and his buyout plan would collapse. He needed to end this, permanently. He planned it carefully. A systems failure during the signing ceremony. A fire that would look like an accident, but would destroy the server room containing evidence of his tampering. And if Adelaide Constance happened to be in the building when it burned. Well, tragic accidents happened. But he had not counted on Archie Clinton. Archie had been watching the building's systems ever since the first attack. Adelaide had given him access to the security feeds, maintenance logs, anything he wanted. She trusted him. So when he noticed irregularities in the fire suppression system the night before the signing, he did not hesitate. He went to the server room to investigate. Corbin was already there, laptop connected to the mainframe, overriding safety protocols. He looked up when Archie entered, and for a moment they just stared at each other. "You should have stayed fired," Corbin said. "You should have stayed honest," Archie replied. Corbin lunged. They fought in the narrow space between server racks, both fighting for their futures, for their versions of justice. Corbin fought dirty, desperate. Archie fought efficiently, trained. When Corbin pulled a knife, Archie disarmed him the same way he had the men in the street, muscle memory saving him when thought was too slow. Adelaide burst into the room just as Archie pinned Corbin to the floor. She had been working late, had seen the security alert, had run. Now she stood there, breathing hard, taking in the scene, Archie bleeding from a cut on his arm, Corbin struggling beneath him, the laptop screen showing lines of sabotage code. "Call the police," Archie said calmly. "And call your lawyer. I think we found your saboteur." The police came, then lawyers, then investigators who combed through Corbin's code and found months of systematic sabotage, stock manipulation, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The evidence was overwhelming. Corbin Dante was led away in handcuffs, still shouting threats that no one listened to. Adelaide stood in the server room after everyone left, looking at the blood on the floor where Archie had been injured, protecting her company, protecting her, again. She found him in the bathroom, trying to wrap his arm with one hand. She took the bandage from him without asking, and did it properly, her fingers gentle against his skin. "You could have died," she said. "So could you. Why do you keep saving me?" Archie cupped her face in his hands, tilted her chin up until their eyes met. "Because somewhere along the way, you became mine to save, mine to protect, mine to—" He stopped, uncertain. "Yours to love," Adelaide finished softly. "Yes." She kissed him then, and it was nothing like the desperate rescue breathing in the stairwell. This was warm and soft and full of promise, a beginning instead of an ending. When they broke apart, both of them were smiling. The contract signing went forward as planned. Adelaide stood at the podium in front of international partners, board members, and press. And she did not read the prepared speech Farah had written. She spoke from the heart. 6 weeks ago, I made a terrible mistake. I fired a man for trying to save my life. I was so caught up in appearing strong that I forgot what actual strength looks like. Strength is not refusing help. Strength is accepting it. Strength is admitting when you're wrong and working to be better. She looked at Archie, standing at the back of the room with Bridget on his shoulders so she could see. Archie Clinton was a janitor in this building. I treated him as invisible, as beneath my notice, as someone who existed to serve me without question. But he is also a decorated veteran, a rescue specialist, a devoted father, and the man who saved my life twice. Once with his breath, and once with his courage to stand up when everyone else stood by. She paused, letting the words settle. Today, I am announcing that Archie will be joining Sterling Tower's leadership team as head of technical safety. His job will be to make sure no one in this building is ever ignored when they raise safety concerns, to make sure every voice matters, regardless of job title, to make sure we value competence over credentials, character over corner offices. The room erupted in applause. Archie looked stunned. Bridget bounced on his shoulders, yelling, "That's my daddy!" After the ceremony, as people filed out and photographers packed up, Bridget slid down from Archie's shoulders and walked up to Adelaide with that serious expression she got when she was thinking hard about something. "Can I ask you a question?" Bridget said. "Of course, sweetheart." "My mommy died. I don't really remember her much." Bridget twisted her hands together, suddenly shy. "But Daddy says she was kind and smart and loved me very much. And you're kind and smart, and I think you love me too, so—" She took a deep breath. "Could you maybe be my mom, not instead of her, but just also?" Adelaide's vision blurred. She knelt down and pulled Bridget into her arms, this brave little girl who had somehow stolen her heart along with her father's. "I would be honored," she whispered. "So incredibly honored." Archie joined them, wrapping his arms around both of them. And Adelaide thought about how strange life was. A month ago, she had been alone in a tower she built from fear and ambition, convinced that needing anyone was weakness. Now she stood surrounded by love she never expected, family she never planned for, happiness she never thought she deserved. "Thank you," she said to Archie, "for breathing life into me in every possible way." "Thank you for letting me," he replied, "for opening your door, for letting us in." Bridget looked up at both of them. "Does this mean I get to live in the penthouse?" They laughed. And it sounded like home, 6 months later. Adelaide would look back on that moment in the stairwell, Archie's mouth on hers, his breath filling her lungs, and understand it was never just about surviving. It was about learning to live, learning to trust, learning that the strongest walls are the ones we build together, not the ones we hide behind alone. Bridget would grow up to become the engineer she dreamed of being, with a father who taught her resilience and a mother who taught her that strength and softness can coexist. Sterling Tower would thrive under leadership that valued every person who kept its systems running, from the executive suite to the maintenance crew, but all of that was in the future, right now, in this moment. A family stood together in a building that had witnessed both their lowest and highest points. A janitor who became a protector, a CEO who became human, a little girl who became the bridge between them. And it all started with a kiss that saved a life and opened a heart that had forgotten how to love.